So I've sort of had a realization, and it sort of led me to the question of like, what does one do if their personality is defective? Now, defective means it's faulty or just does not work as well. Now, what does that mean? It means in some sense it's broken if you view it through the lens of like social norm. So it makes for a tricky situation because of um the the easy way to look at it is through social norm, right? Is my personality effective for social productivity? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself, okay, what exactly is my personality effective in, right? So where am I not defective? But that's a very difficult question to answer because of social norm makes up about 90% of all sort of productivity on planet Earth, or at least a large part of it. Now, you could make the assertion that a higher intelligence allows for social norm, but then I'd still say that social norms still exist within some variation, and the same traits that work now would still work there too. So it becomes a question of like, if my personality is defective, what should I do? As in, where do I fit in, right? And it's a particularly difficult question to answer because of like, there aren't a lot of spaces available, if you get what I'm saying. So like I said, if 90% of all interaction on the planet is based off of like some sort of social norm, then you have to find a way to get into the 10%. And 10% sounds like good odds until you realize that 10% is essentially 1 in 10, a 1 in 10 chance, right? Which makes things sound very bleak when you put it that way. Um, it means that out of everything that's happening on Earth, you technically only have a you can only you can technically only fit into 10% of what's going on. But the question is like, what is that 10%? So how do you get into that 10%? But now that I think of it, it doesn't sound as bad because when you say your personality is defective because you don't fit in with the 90%, it sounds like bleak because you'll never get along with anyone until you realize that aren't most rich people part of the 1%? If I, aren't most fit people part of the 1%, etc., etc.? So it starts to look less and less terrible, but what you also have to understand is that if you look at the 1%, they're generally not mentally stable. And it's not like they're killing a bunch of people, though there are part of them that are. But it's like they're not normal. But like I said, your personality is already defective. So you're already not normal. All you need is a catalyst to get you to that 1%. And I guess it's getting to that 1% that's particularly difficult because of you primarily interacting with the 90%. Now, the math is not perfect, but I guess I found my answer. If your personality is defective, just look at it through the lens of if I don't fit into the 90%, that means I fit into the 10%, and the 10% always happen to be impressive. Or they happen to be psychopaths, murderers, killers. But for the most part, if you look at it differently now, it doesn't all of a sudden make life easier because being a part of the 10% means being rejected by the 90%. I mean, that's the only way you can know if your personality is defective is if you actually interact with the 90%. So, but it does make for a more interesting scenario.